Cartoons have always operated on two levels simultaneously. On the surface, they deliver colorful characters, slapstick gags, and gentle life lessons aimed at children. But underneath, hidden in single frames, coded into dialogue, or buried inside episode plots, lie Easter eggs and story choices that are anything but innocent. Some of these hidden elements are clever winks at adult audiences. Others are outright disturbing. And a select few were so dark, so offensive, or so wildly inappropriate that the studios and networks responsible quietly scrubbed them from history. These are 5 of the most notorious cases where something deeply wrong was hiding inside a cartoon. And what happened when the world finally noticed. 1. The Rescuers, 1977. The Topless Woman in the Window. Disney's beloved rescue mice were hiding something no family film should. On the surface, The Rescuers is a sweet, adventurous Disney film about 2 brave mice, Bernard and Bianca, who set out to save a kidnapped orphan girl named Penny. It was a box office success in 1977, charmed audiences for decades, and even spawned a 1990 sequel. Nobody, it seemed, noticed anything wrong, until home video made it possible to pause, rewind, and look more carefully. On January 8, 1999, Disney announced a recall of the home video version of The Rescuers because it contained an objectionable background image. That image appeared approximately 38 minutes into the film, as rodent heroes Bianca and Bernard fly through the city in a sardine box strapped to the back of Orville the albatross. A photographic image of a topless woman can be seen at the window of a building in 2 different non-consecutive frames. Snopes. In January 1999, Disney recalled 3.4 million copies of the home video release, as the nudity was briefly visible for a split second. This was removed from subsequent physical media releases. Disney Plus uses this censored cut. Fandom. What made the discovery genuinely disturbing wasn't just its existence, it was its deliberate nature. A Disney spokesperson said that the tampering with the film was done during production, not explaining what they were or who put it there, and calling it an internal matter. The studio never publicly identified who inserted the image, and they never would. The perpetrator hid something explicit inside a children's film at the production level, and it stayed there for over 2 decades. Lady Bible. The images had apparently been part of the film since it was originally released in 1977, but were not seen in the first home video release in 1992. 3 days after The Rescuers' 1999 home video release, Disney announced the recall after employees found the objectionable image in the film. PopCulture.com. Disney issued the recall under the banner of keeping its promise to families. The image was stripped from all future prints and streaming versions. No one was ever publicly held accountable. To this day, it remains the most confirmed, undeniable example of adult content being deliberately hidden inside a Disney animated feature. Not a rumor, not an optical illusion, but a real photograph of a real person, inserted frame by frame into a film made for children. 2 Tiny Toon Adventures. 1 beer. 1991. A cartoon trio drinks 1 beer, then drives off a cliff into a graveyard, and dies. Tiny Toon Adventures was a celebrated Warner Brothers spin-off produced by Steven Spielberg, following the hijinks of a younger generation of Looney Tunes characters at Acme Looniversity. The show was witty, self-referential, and generally good-natured, until one episode decided to deliver an anti-alcohol message with the subtlety of a sledgehammer to the face. The episode Elephant Issues originally aired on September 18, 1991, and for at least 2/3 of the episode, it plays out just like any other episode of Tiny Toon Adventures. But it's the 3rd and final segment, titled 1 Beer, that went too far. The segment deals with the dangers of alcohol and has Buster, Plucky, and Hampton getting drunk, committing crimes, and ultimately driving off a cliff. Looper. The segment is genuinely jaw-dropping in the context of a Saturday morning cartoon. The trio end up driving straight off a cliff and crash-landing on an actual grave before ascending to heaven with angels' wings. The camera then switches to the recording studio where the characters say they hope the kids got the message. Grunge Fox, the WB, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon all refused to rerun this unusually dark segment. The Hub finally reran it in 2013, 22 years after it first aired. CBR. The episode's intentions were never in question. The writers clearly wanted to produce a hard-hitting cautionary tale about underage drinking, but the execution crossed a line that children's television wasn't ready for. Showing beloved cartoon characters die, ascend to heaven, and crash into a cemetery proved too visceral, even if it was eventually revealed to be a staged demonstration. The network's refusal to rerun it for over 2 decades speaks to how deeply it unsettled broadcasters who otherwise made a living airing cartoons, where characters got flattened by anvils and bounced back unchanged. Death, it turns out, is fine, as long as it's consequence-free. 3. Ren and Stimpy, Man's Best Friend, 1992. The episode so violent it got its own creator fired. The Ren and Stimpy show was never a gentle cartoon. Its entire identity was built on grotesque close-ups, psychologically disturbing imagery, and a gleeful willingness to go places other cartoons wouldn't touch. But even Nickelodeon, who had already aired episodes filled with disturbing content, drew a hard line at a Season 2 episode called Man's Best Friend, and the consequences reshaped the entire show. Before its scheduled air date, Nickelodeon chose to ban the episode outright due to its violence, scatological humor, and frequent references to tobacco. A fish is seen smoking a cigarette, and the main character, George Liquor, is repeatedly shown giving Ren and Stimpy lawn cigar, doggy treats as rewards. Treats that were drawn to resemble cigars and feces simultaneously. Lost Media Wiki. But the true reason the episode was buried was simpler and more visceral than any of that. Nickelodeon executives resisted the episode due to one violent scene near the end in which Ren beats up George Liquor with an oar, as well as the way George yelled at Stimpy. Following the episode's ban, Nickelodeon fired John Kricfalusi and a number of employees at Spumchu. Wikipedia. The episode never aired on television until June 23, 2003 on TNN, later renamed Spike TV, as a prelude to Adult Party Cartoon, which premiered 3 days later. A year later, it was also included on the Seasons 1 and 2 DVD. Fandom, the fallout was enormous. Kricfalusi losing control of Ren and Stimpy over this episode effectively ended the creative peak of the series. The show continued without him under Games Animation but never recaptured the anarchic energy of its early seasons. Man's Best Friend, an episode with no blood, no nudity, and no explicit language, cost the creator his own show simply because it depicted cartoon violence without softening the consequence. It remains one of the most influential banned episodes in animation history, not because of what it showed, but because of what it cost. 4. Transformers G1, A Thief in the Night, 1986. The episode with a country literally named Kerbombia. The original Transformers animated series was many things: a toy commercial, an adventure show, and occasionally a surprisingly emotional piece of science fiction. What it was not supposed to be was a vehicle for racist caricature. And yet, in its 3rd season, it produced an episode so flagrantly offensive that it drove one of its own voice actors to quit the show in protest. Back in 1986, Lebanese-American actor Casey Kasem, the voice of Shaggy and Scooby-Doo, was reading the scripts for the 3rd season of Transformers when he came across an episode that didn't sit right with him. Titled A Thief in the Night, the episode featured a highly stereotypical Arab dictator, Abdul Fakadi, as the villain in a country called Karbombia. The writers named it Karbomya. Step feed. The episode took place within the fictional nation of Karbombia under the dictatorship of oil and gold-obsessed Abdul Fakadi, a thinly veiled reference to Libya under then-ruler Muammar Gaddafi. The people of Karbombia are depicted as unintelligent camel worshippers, and the entire episode seems to poke fun at those living under oppressive regimes. CBR, reading through the script closely, Kasem realized that not only did the episode offensively represent Arabs, it also did not include any good Arab characters to balance out the villain. He told the show's director that, in good conscience, he couldn't be part of that show. Step feed. The Easter egg here isn't hidden in a single frame. It's embedded directly in the name of the fictional country itself, in plain sight, shouted aloud in the episode's dialogue. Carbombia. It aired. It was seen. And while it hasn't been formally removed from all home releases, it became a widely cited example of the casual, normalized racism in 1980s children's animation, a punchline built directly into the geography of a fictional nation, with a real actor paying the professional price for refusing to voice it. 5. The Lion King, 1994. The Sex Dust Cloud. Disney, a dust cloud, and the most famous 3 letters in animation history. Few alleged cartoon Easter eggs have generated more controversy than the moment in The Lion King, when a despondent Simba collapses onto a cliff's edge, sending a puff of dust floating into the night sky. According to the most enduring version of this story, the floating dust particles briefly arrange themselves into the word sex, a deliberate message hidden by animators inside one of Disney's most beloved films. The legend goes that when Simba flops to the ground and kicks up a cloud of dust, the word sex forms in the individual dust motes. An animator for the film named Tom Saito acknowledged the inclusion of the Easter egg, although he claims that it spells SFX as a nod to the effects animators. But it doesn't really matter now because modern viewers can't see it anyway. This scene was altered for the 2002 IMAX re-release, and all further home and streaming releases have retained the censored version. Watch Mojo. Whether it says sex or SFX has been debated endlessly since the 1990s. What isn't debatable is that Disney altered the scene and kept it altered across every subsequent release. The decision to change the moment, rather than leave it as a harmless technical credit, reads as an implicit acknowledgement that something was there that shouldn't have been. If it truly said SFX, there would be little reason to modify it. Instead, it quietly disappeared from IMAX screens in 2002 and has never reappeared since. The story is a fitting summary of how these dark Easter eggs tend to work. Animators, overworked and underpaid, hiding small acts of rebellion inside frames that move too fast for any censor to catch. Some are just signatures, some are jokes, and some, as this list makes clear, are something considerably darker, aimed at an audience that was only ever supposed to see the magic.